She left the firm. Like, she left too. So it's just like, what are you trying to accomplish here?
She was like trying to be a company man, and like anyone who's trying to be a company man, we're never gonna vibe with.
Never.
Because we're not.
Hello, clowns.
I'm Ami.
I'm Yu Chen, and we're the hosts of Clown Vibes Podcast.
We're two best friends who get together to laugh and discuss a variety of topics.
From all things pop culture to navigating through adulthood as Asian Americans, and more with our own clown spin, of course.
We're so glad to have you here to clown around with us, and we hope you enjoy the episode. Hey guys, what's up? Yuch, how's it going?
It is going. It's been 3 days since I last saw you, and I don't know what to do with myself.
I know. Has it been 3 days already? Only two.
Oh, really? Only 2? Okay.
But it feels like it's been long.
I know.
Yesterday when I was like looking at pictures to send you for the launch graphic, I was just like, aw, I'm sad.
I know. If we blow up, we can just, do Clown Vibes 24/7.
And live closer to each other.
I think 90% of the audience would be happy.
I heard something super funny the other day. Do you know anyone who works 2 jobs?
I don't know anyone personally who works like 2 corporate jobs. I feel like it's common for people to have side hustles. Does that count as a job though? Like, does Clown Vibes count as a job?
No, I'm asking you about like 2 full-time corporate jobs. You know how the trend during COVID was to do that, like for software engineers?
I don't know why. Yeah, I do know that trend, but like, I actually don't know why that's necessary.
I actually saw on Big Four Accountant the other day that someone was working 4 jobs. And in accounting, that's so stupid. Like, I don't know what the fuck they were doing or why. But yeah, I think it was like software engineers are working 2 jobs because they're doing like nothing at their jobs. So they can easily work 2 jobs. But anyway, the reason I bring it up is because I know someone who was doing that and they were like ready to quit one of their jobs because they were over doing the 2 and they got laid off. And so now they get severance for like 4 or 5 months and then still have their other job.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that like such a winning? It was like a win-win all around.
I know.
They were literally like, I was going to quit in the next few days and then I got laid off and I was so happy.
So was this person just working like crazy hours, or did it just amount to like still a 40-hour week?
I think it was still the same hours, but like the working hours were sometimes really like chaotic. Like they'd have to be on 2 calls at the same time, and like if they had to talk on one, they'd have to like mute and like all of this stuff. Like one call in one ear, the other call in the other ear. Like that's so difficult. First of all, I can barely pay attention to 1 call, much less 2 calls. And talk? No way.
Okay, I love how your brain went to that, because mine is just like, which earphones? How are they like managing the tech? Is it like, do they have 2?
They have to have 2 different earphones.
But wouldn't that look weird on camera? I guess I hear that software engineers don't really go on camera for their calls.
Yeah.
So it's not.
There's no way they could have been on camera, because otherwise it'd be too obvious that they're doing like 2 calls. Right?
Yeah, I guess.
I don't think they were on camera. So it was fine.
I did hear about this trend during COVID, and I feel like a lot of like new work trends kind of quote unquote popped off during COVID, which is kind of like our somewhat topic for today. But do you still think that a lot of people are working double jobs?
No. I think it was like easier to do and justify in your mind when you were doing nothing. But now everyone's kind of like, I'm over this.
Yeah.
I have accumulated the money. Who cares? I want to like have fun and live my life.
It's crazy.
So I think we're seeing less of it.
Because it's like a group of people who, on average, make more than like the average, I would say, corporate individual.
Yeah, I don't understand it, but good for them.
Good for them.
I guess.
If I get laid off of my job, I guess I have clown vibes and I wouldn't be able to pay for my rent. So Actually, this kind of reminds me. So I saw this TikTok video the other day of this girl that I follow, and her original content was like a day in the life of a tech PM. And she never like goes to the office. So it was
Mhm.
more of like her work from home routine that I was like really into. But she had quit about a year ago to become like a full-time influencer. And I had like rarely seen her. For some reason, I don't know if you get this on TikTok, but like anyone that I follow, I usually never get on my like For You page. And that is like my main source of like content.
Yeah.
But one of her videos recently got pushed to me, and it was basically her saying like, hey, just letting y'all know an update, like it is not going well. Like I've made like almost no money. It's been really tough. And it really made me realize like the glamour of quitting your full-time job, becoming an influencer is much harder and like so
So
unreal
hard.
too. Like I mean, you see people become successful, but you really don't like see all the times that people realize, oh shit, like this actually isn't sustainable.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we know firsthand how hard it is to be like fake ass
Oh, I know.
content creators. Imagine having to do that all day. First of all, I would hate it. I don't think I would like enjoy it at all anymore. But it is such an unstable source of income that it's kind of wild and risky that this influencer quit without like
Mm-hmm.
having a plan. I guess if you were a tech PM, you have a lot of savings.
Yeah, and they had like this person has a fiance or like a partner, and
Ah,
in the
okay.
video she was basically saying, I'm very fortunate that like my income doesn't pay for any living expenses,
Okay.
which is great for her because she's not making any money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Should we get into our main topic of today?
Let's.
Our main topic today is kind of about a lot of these corporate terms or like ways of working that have kind of popped off in the recent years. I wouldn't say like most of them is recent. Most of them are actually like have been around for quite a bit of time, but I
Yeah.
think we're just talking about it more in social media. And it really like I think COVID really sparked a lot of discussion on how corporate and just like working in general should be viewed in society, because I feel like society has really shifted in our mindset, especially in America, our mindset of like the value of working
Yeah.
and how hard you should work. So the first topic that I want to discuss is hero culture. Do you know what hero culture is? Because I actually did not know what it was until like 3 months ago.
Yeah, I didn't know until you found out.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember asking you, like, what does that mean?
Yeah. And it seems pretty self-explanatory after I like read the definition to you,
Yeah.
right? So I'm going to read out the definition that I found. Hero office culture is a functional area of the organization run by a group of hardworking, highly talented, quote unquote, heroes on sheer strength, will, and knowledge. Pause. Like, what comes to mind when you hear this?
I literally like picture Popeye like trying to lift
What?
the like ship or something. I have no idea. But also what comes to mind is like consulting.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And yeah.
I love how the definition says like it's a functional area of the organization, whereas when we view consulting or like anything similar to consulting, it's literally the entire organization. The entire organization is somewhat run on hero culture, which is really clownish because you don't always like have enough work to like be pushing so
Yeah.
hard for hero culture. So it's a lot of faking it, don't you think?
It's so much, it's fully faking it. Like the only people who are successful are people faking it.
Yeah, because at one point, like, and we'll get into it in the episode, hero culture is not really sustainable. Like, it's not supposed to be like
Of course
a
not.
long term form of like culture at your company. And so
Yeah.
when you see it as like ingrained in your culture as it is in consulting, it's also just like why. You know, another like topic like
Yeah.
outside of consulting that this like popped up is, you know, that class MIS 333K or something at UT.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And basically it's like a big project that the class does at the end of the semester, and it's kind of like notoriously known as like a project where you have to stay up all night working on, right?
Yeah, yeah. And like they rank your projects and there's like a prize for the winner or something. They really gamify this project.
Mm-hmm.
And for what?
For what and why are we like championing staying up all night? I have never pulled an all-nighter. I don't know if you know
Yeah.
this, but like I cannot stay up all night. I mean, you did a red eye, right, recently. Like it's so uncomfy and I don't know, I like sleep.
Yeah. Oh, I love sleep. I think like I've only pulled an all-nighter because my sleep schedule in college was that shit and I would just stay up all night and sleep all day. So that doesn't count, but I could never. And if someone asked me to do that, I would be like, nah.
Right. Another thing that like is representative of hero office culture, I think, is do you ever see those startup LinkedIn job posts where it's like, we're a
Yeah.
ragtag team of ex consultants and ex investment bankers? I mean, basically, they're saying we don't have any like technical skills in this area, but we're all pushing really hard and we work hard and play hard. Wait, didn't your business frat like have that exact logo or like saying like work hard, play hard?
I don't know, but I hope not. I was not working hard, so. Or playing hard, really. I was just neutrally doing
Maybe
everything.
it was like another business or maybe another business organization, because isn't that such like a business org thing to say?
It's such a business org thing. That's like the iBanking motto.
Yeah. And for what? Like, why can't we just work regular, play hard? Like,
yeah. You know what kind of sucks is like because we started in that environment, like I remember starting and everyone was like, gotta get on projects so I can have utilization.
I
Like everyone was
know.
always so frantic. And I was just like, what the fuck? Are you supposed to just be on edge at all times? Like even my career coach or whatever was so on edge. And I'm just like, okay, 10 years in, if I'm this on edge, something is fucking wrong.
I know. Have you ever like experienced office or hero office culture yourself?
Oh, 100%.
In what like capacity? Was it at your first like Big Four job?
Yeah. And it was like at my first project that was like just with so many people. It was always chaos. The client was like pitting our own team against each other. So they were also helping to kind of perpetuate the hero culture. And I hella played into it because I, one, thought it was normal,
Mm-hmm.
and then two, would get so much praise and reward for doing it. And I remember like one of the seniors I was close to on that project was like, this isn't worth it, and you don't need to reply like immediately if they email you at the end of the night, like it's setting a bad precedent. And I'm like, yeah, but everyone else does. Like I, feel like I have to. And he was like, you don't, like, don't do it.
I feel like when office culture starts to like seep into whatever project or like team that you're working on, it is 100% up to like the team lead, like whoever is responsible for that team,
100%.
to set the norm. And if they're perpetuating the hero office culture, then that's on them. Like that's 100% on them.
They were starting it. So everyone thought that was so normal. Everyone was just like, why wouldn't you do this? And I was like, because I like to have fun. I don't know. This sounds freaking horrible.
I know. I think the thing about hero office culture and just like overall toxic office culture is it creates like this air of fear that you're not allowed to kind of like express how you truly feel. Because honestly, like, do we actually, if we like took a big sample of like 100 people, do most people actually like care to become a hero in their office? I don't really think so.
I doubt it.
But like we're so brainwashed at times. And I'll share this story. I was like a first year analyst or something in my consulting firm, and I was just doing these like coffee chats because that is apparently how you're supposed to get staff. Like you're just supposed to like network and schmooze with other people. And someone connected me, and I'm still like friends with this person that connected me to this girl, but someone connected me to this girl who wasn't even like a partner or something. She was just like a level above me. And I was like, yeah, I'll like chat with her because we might have the same interests. And for the most part, people in consulting are like really cool. It's just the work that we do that is it. But
yeah,
I remember just like casually mentioning to this girl, like, yeah, I don't think like consulting is really for me in the long term. Like I have other goals. Like I want to work in the retail industry. And that's something that like I've always said. And she's like, a little piece of advice, you shouldn't be saying that out loud. And I'm just like, what?
Yeah. Like maybe you shouldn't to someone hella higher up or something, but like, who do you think you are?
Yeah. And like, don't we know that like the percentage of people who go from analyst to like MD is so low?
Exactly.
And
the firm works because everyone leaves.
Yeah. And also, when you're like interviewing for consulting, they ask like, what industries are you interested
Yeah.
in? Like, looking back, there are a lot of people who stay within consulting that actually don't have a lot of technical skills from their industry experience, and it's really hard to like provide valuable advice. And so I think like the industry works because they're pulling people from like industry to like come be consultants. And it's like that mixture of experience that really helps the project. But after that, I was just like, okay, am I never allowed to express like any passion projects that I'm on? Like, I would be
Yeah.
so afraid to talk about clown vibes. Like, I would be afraid to mention it. Whereas, like, in my current job, I just say, like, oh, yeah, I have this like silly podcast on the side. It's really whatever.
Yeah. Even when you are like recruiting for them, they're like, hey, when you leave, you can do all of these cool things. Like, look at what ex employees have gone to do. So they promote it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really like weird of that girl to have said to you.
I actually stalked her LinkedIn like a few months back. She left the firm. Like, she left too. So it's just like, what are you trying to accomplish here?
She was like trying to be a company man, and like
Yeah.
anyone who's trying to be a company man, we're never gonna vibe with
Never.
because we're not. And also, they're not getting anything special for being a company man. Like maybe a little bit, but not anything big enough in the long term to have like sold your soul.
The soul is all we have left. They like take everything else.
Seriously.
When I was researching hero office culture, I found this pretty old LinkedIn article. So like this term has been around for quite a bit of time, but they kind of like
Yeah.
outlined why the idea that hero culture is somewhat addictive in a company. What are your thoughts on this?
It's 100% addictive because when you are the hero in your office, culture perpetuates it. They're rewarding you for being that way, and you're getting so much praise. And obviously, everyone wants to feel validated. And if you're feeling validated when you are being the hero, you're going to continue to do it.
And like this validation really like plays into, I think, the human psyche, right? Like, I just want to know
For
who is
sure.
developing these like performance cycles or like performance measurements.
Yeah.
Because it's like when you see someone else being a hero, automatically it makes you feel like you're underperforming when you're just
Mm-hmm.
doing your job. And shouldn't that be like,
Yeah.
I don't know, the expectation is for you to do your job?
Exactly. And we all have this like inherent need to think that like the things we're doing is like helping people or like is like good in essence. And this additionally plays into that, right? Like if you are being praised for what you're doing, you're like, oh, like my job matters and like I am important here, when you would be important there if you're just doing your job.
Or you should be.
Yeah, you should be.
The best advice that I ever got in my very short career so far is from this woman who has been working for a really, really long time in a variety of roles. And okay, to like preface this, she wasn't really showing up at the office much. And this was like before COVID. So we just didn't know what she was doing. But once she was like, yeah, sometimes when, things are getting crazy, I just stop and like think, I'm not curing cancer here. And like every time something
Yeah,
like becomes crazy for me, I'm just like, it's really not. We're not
it's
curing
not
cancer.
serious.
It's not that serious.
No.
And it doesn't mean that we don't prioritize our job or like take it seriously.
Yeah,
I think it's just like telling ourselves that like we can't keep pushing constantly, and it shouldn't be our expectation to push constantly because it's not sustainable.
yeah, for sure. You know what? I think like also the shift to talk about these things more is because Gen Z is like really not company people. They don't give a shit about going above and beyond. And like that's the best thing that they have really added to work culture is just them being like, ah, I'm off now. Like there's so many trending sounds where it's about how your job is like important, but not, there's no reason to have fire drills all the time.
No. I mean, it goes to like that second point from the article that I wanted to discuss is like hero office culture hides like a deeper problem within your organization,
Yeah.
and it's not scalable. And that's like 100% true, because whenever I was in an org where we were in constant fire drills, it really was like because we just couldn't plan well. We couldn't plan well, we
Yeah.
couldn't communicate, and we couldn't like agree on the direction that we wanted to move to. And we also just operated in like a world of fear of like a few individuals. But it's just like a
Yeah.
combination or a mixture of things that were just bad toxic like traits of the workplace that led to hero culture.
Yeah, it's also like resourcing. Companies don't want to spend the money to like staff correctly, and then they put the burden on the few employees that are there. And you're not going to be able to find 1,000 employees who are down to participate in this hero culture environment of breaking their back to get something done. Like at some point, most people are going to be like, nah, I'm done with this.
It's a tale as old as time, but like we've seen so many cases where companies are doing layoffs or like fire an individual, and they're just hiring for the same role, like backfilling for the same role.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't you know you're like doing this to yourself? I mean, like there are instances where, you know, the individual themselves is really not like a fit for the company, but more
Yeah.
often
Yeah.
than not, like you're spending time, you're disrupting like teams, and you're like causing people to like absorb other people's roles.
Yeah. And you know what I think is like one of the things that makes me most mad about corporate America is like when you are looking to be promoted, they're always like, oh, how have you proved that you're already in that next role? And like sometimes you have to prove it for an extended amount of time. Like especially at Big Four, they'll say like, oh, in your last year as senior, you have to be an acting manager. As your last year as associate, you need to be an acting
Mm-hmm.
senior. And it's like, first of all, you're not paying me for this job. Second of all, like, what the hell are you like forcing us to do? And then sometimes you don't get promoted, and then that person's gonna leave, right? Then you're spending so much money trying to find a replacement for them when you could have just one, valued them and promoted them because they've been doing the job for a year,
Mm-hmm.
or two, not have them break their back for a year to prove themselves to you.
I actually saw a TikTok very recently about that exact same situation. But like in this TikTok, this girl was just like, I am actually going to start just doing the bare minimum, because like I literally asked them what else
Yeah.
I can do to get promoted. And they were literally like, nothing else. And so she was just like, okay,
Yeah.
cool. And honestly, I appreciate that company's honesty, because I know that there are certain companies that will probably like dangle the promotion in front of the or that person, even if they never have like the intention to promote them or like give them a raise.
That just happened to one of my friends and he quit. And I was like, I am proud of you and glad that you did
Mm-hmm.
because this is crazy.
Do you think hero office culture is bad?
Yeah.
Because I personally, I feel like it's an unnecessary evil at times. Like, I don't think that it's something that we need to continue to have, but there are times where we do need a push, whether that's hero office culture or not, questionable.
I don't think that qualifies as hero office culture. I mean, obviously, there are going to be busy times at your job and like times where everyone needs to rally and push. I think the idea of hero culture, at least in my mind, is that it is all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And there should be a natural ebb and flow where if you've pushed, you get to like chill a little bit or it's like not as hectic so that it's sustainable. But I think the thing with hero culture is that you never really get that break and you're always pushing.
And it leads to burnout, which is also, I think, related
Of
to
course.
kind of like our second topic. We love talking about this with your uncle.
It's my uncle's favorite.
And it's quiet quitting. Do you remember when the Girls Gotta Eat podcast did an episode on quiet quitting and they got hella called out for their perspective on it?
Okay, I remember them getting called out, but I didn't listen to the episode. What did they say that was like so bad?
I was listening to the episode and it made me mad. And I don't typically like, if I'm listening to something and I like don't agree with, it's like really whatever.
Yeah.
But this one, they were basically saying, like, we've worked like all these jobs and, it's really like validating to work hard. And they were basically like
Okay.
insinuating that people are lazy if they're quiet quitting. And I don't know if it's because
Got
of
it.
our
I
age
remember now.
difference with them, because they are older than us. And sometimes we err on the side of the zillennial side.
Yeah, most of the time.
I was just like, man, you have like not, you've been out of like office culture for a while now, because no one right
Yeah.
now, I think, would think that quiet quitting is being lazy. Like, quiet quitting is very nuanced.
No, exactly. I don't understand why they chose that topic when they have no experience with like the current environment of working a job where you would quiet quit. Like they have their own business. Like you're not really quiet quitting if you have your own business.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very different situation.
Let me read you the definition of quiet quitting, because I feel like sometimes we misuse the term quiet quitting, but the definition I found is that it's a softer approach than outright leaving a job. The term isn't literal, but a play on words. Rather than workers quitting jobs, they are quitting the idea of going above and beyond. They're usually unhappy with some aspect of their current company or role. They choose only to complete the bare minimum. My issue with like this definition and how people view quiet quitting is like they think quiet quitting is related to like giving up on your job, when
Yeah.
it's instead them just doing their job.
Exactly. It's them saying, like, nah, I don't need to do any special projects or whatever. I'm going to do my day to day responsibilities, do what I need to do to get my job done, and live my life.
In consulting, we had so many orgs and like groups and like special projects, and it was almost required that you would have these like extracurriculars in order to get promoted. But what was like most clownish is barely anyone actually cared about the like extra project that they were on. They were all doing it just because they felt like they had
It's a
to,
checkbox.
because of hero office culture and like the culture that consulting had stood up for generations and generations. And honestly, one of the most like relieving aspect of leaving consulting was I never felt super pressured to join one of those orgs.
Yeah. Now when I do, I mean, not that I am in like any of the orgs, but like now that I do it, when I do anything outside of, I guess, my job, I'm doing it because I want to, like planning an event or like doing our offsite. Like that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually used to do that in my old jobs too, but I would be voluntold to do it and then I would be annoyed.
Yeah. And it's so funny because in those like orgs, it's usually just one person that's like pushing, like they're the hero. They're the hero in that case and pushing
Yeah.
for it. And if we're not interested, does that mean that we're not a hard worker or we're lazy? Absolutely not.
No.
Like, wouldn't you want your individuals to actually care about the topic?
Yeah.
Like, what I like about my current job is we actually don't have a lot of these like orgs within the company, and if we do, it's like a fun org, like not company
Yeah.
like promoted. I think the
Yeah.
only like company promoted org that we have is like a D&I steering committee, but other than that, they're like just fun like orgs to join if you're actually interested. And for the most part, shouldn't your company just want you to focus on your job?
Exactly. Why would you want extra distractions?
Okay, would you ever quiet quit?
Yes, because I think quiet quitting is hella respectable, and I admire people who have quiet quit. Because what gain do you have? Sometimes there is a gain, sure, I agree. Sometimes going above and beyond does help.
Mm-hmm.
But not in most cases. And if you can gauge that it's not going to help you, then there's no need. And you're doing your job, and adding quitting gives it such a negative connotation that it doesn't deserve.
I want to rename it because you're not quitting your job. And also, people are just like, oh, why don't you just quit? And it's like, some people also can't afford that. Like, it's not like we don't want to work. I mean, there are people who actually don't want to work, but if they're doing their jobs, what are you mad about? Honestly,
Exactly.
I am a proponent of quiet quitting. Like, if anyone told me they were quote unquote quiet quitting, I'd be like, okay, cool. As long as you're doing your job.
Yeah.
Like, meeting expectations. But
exactly.
I just think that Asian culture, like the culture that I was brought up in, going to
Oh, for sure.
business school, going into consulting, even like my first startup job was a little bit of like a hero culture environment. It is literally so ingrained in me that I have to like fight every like single like bone in my body to actually quiet quit.
Yeah, I think I've gotten better at it. Not that I'm quiet quitting. Disclaimer, anyone from my company listening. Also, management kind of leads to quiet quitting in that, like, if you don't have enough work, that's not on you.
Mm-hmm.
That is on other people to give you the work, especially like if you're not in like a higher up role. So if I'm doing my job and it's not taking up much of my day, like what am I supposed to do? Like grovel for work all the time? This is why I don't work in consulting, because is what you would have to do
It
there.
is.
But I don't have to do that anymore, nor am I ever going to.
And when you do have to like grovel for work, the craziest thing from my experience is when you don't have work, which is not your fault, because
Yeah.
why is there an excess of resources and we're supposed to like be finding our projects? All right, and let me just knock on the door of the CEO of like the Home Depot or something like that. But we would have to email our HR person saying like, we reached out to this person and this, like we're being reported on for like how active we are in trying to get staff, and it like makes zero
It's bullshit.
sense. I remember
Yeah.
like catching up with an old coworker, and she was just like, honestly, in my last leg of like consulting, I just like hid behind like some business development work and just applied for other jobs because they couldn't find other like roles for me.
Yeah. And they put so much onus on like lower level employees, and that's insane because they have no real way of getting work, and it's a management problem.
Mm-hmm. To wrap us up, one topic that is somewhat related, I think, and also coming out of COVID is just like the idea of like remote working and like a hybrid work environment. How do you think that has impacted the idea of hero culture and quiet quitting?
Oh, I'm unsure about hero culture because I just don't feel like we have that much of it at my job. And
Good.
yeah, it's great. I would hope that remote working has lessened hero culture because you have to be so much more active in like telling people that you're doing all of this extra stuff. Like it's not as visible as if you were in an office. So I hope that it has decreased hero culture, and I think it has increased quiet quitting.
Mm-hmm.
But like in that, people feel like they have more freedom to like live their actual life, so they're not as like, they don't care as much about going above and beyond when they don't feel like they're getting anything for it, when they have the flexibility and freedom to do other things instead. You're not tied to an office where you kind of have to sit there for 8 hours. So it's like, might as well do this extra stuff because I'm bored.
I don't know where I like saw this, read this, or heard this from someone, but they were just like explaining how with like COVID and remote working, people are realizing that they can get their job done in like 2 hours and then chill for like the rest of the 6 hours. I mean, that's not really my job. I can't do it in like 2 hours, but
Yeah.
if like you're able to do your job in 2 hours and like your
More power to you.
yeah, your company doesn't have an issue with that, like seriously, more power to you.
Exactly.
That's like bad planning on their end. But I remember when I first started consulting, and we had so little work, but I would literally feel like the most stress I had going into the workday was how do I pretend to be busy?
Yes, agreed. I used to be so stressed, like so anxious. Then I would spend so much time like online shopping, and I would spend so much money because I was like, I have nothing else to do. I used to look at like batches all day, every day. I used to look at the Bachelor Reddit all the time, and it was like rotting my brain, which is fine, but also just so boring and so annoying.
That's funny that you would just online shop and read batches, because I would like download just long ass books on like Kindle and just read it. And I'd be at literally the client site, like sitting next to my client, and be like, okay, I guess I have to pretend for 8 hours that I actually had
Yeah.
like something to do when I actually had like nothing to do. And I might as well
Yeah,
just like go
yeah.
home and do chores or something.
Exactly. Like, it's okay to have downtime in your job, but it's like useless to have downtime if you can't use it in the way you want to use it. Yeah, sometimes I would download books, but because I couldn't look it at on my phone, it would like annoy the shit out of me to like read it on my computer like that. I don't know why. The amount of time I spent just trying to figure out what I should do that day. Crazy.
What I love about like my company right now, and maybe it's like the people that I work with, but even my leads are always just like talking about leaving a little bit early to go do something, or like
Yeah,
just during the workday going on a walk. They're very open
100%.
about like taking advantage of the fact that we are remote, and I feel like it promotes a culture of like, this is acceptable and you should take advantage of it too.
For sure. And I think my company really has that too, and I appreciate that so much.
The day that either you and I go back to like 5 days a week in the corporate office,
Never.
it will never happen. But like the day it does, pray for us.
We'll die. No, I just don't think like I could ever do it. I would lose my mind. I don't know.
Thanks so much for listening. You can follow us on all social media at Clown Vibes Podcast or email us at clownvibespodcast@gmail.com.
And if you like our show and want to support us, please like, subscribe, and give us a rating and review. That's it for today. Bye, clowns.
Bye, clowns.